The guards raised their plasma rifles the moment Daniel Cross stepped through the palace doors. He kept walking. The crystalline floor of the Zarian throne room reflected 1,000 lights, and at the far end sat Queen Lyra, 23 years old, and ruler of the entire Zarian Empire. Her silver eyes narrowed as Daniel approached without chains, without escorts, without fear. "Stop him," she commanded, her voice sharp as broken glass. 6 elite guards converged on Daniel from all sides. He didn't break stride. The nearest guard thrust his rifle toward Daniel's chest, but Daniel caught the barrel with one hand and twisted. The weapon clattered to the floor. Another guard lunged from behind. Daniel ducked, letting the alien's momentum carry him past, then swept his leg out. The guard crashed into a crystalline pillar. Enough! Queen Lyra stood from her throne, her ornate robes shifting like liquid metal. Let him approach. The remaining guards backed away, confused but obedient. Daniel stopped 10 paces from the throne and met the young queen's gaze. She was beautiful in the way a storm was beautiful, all sharp edges and dangerous energy. Her silver skin gleamed under the palace lights, and the crown of stars floating above her head pulsed with contained power. "You destroyed 3 of my warships," she said. "They fired first," Daniel replied. "You killed Admiral Kren. He was torturing prisoners." Queen Lyra descended the steps of her throne, slowly, deliberately. She moved like a predator, every motion calculated. "You are one human. 1. My empire spans 47 star systems. I command fleets that could turn your homeworld to ash. Yet, you walk into my palace as if you own it." Daniel shrugged. "You wanted me here. I saved you the trouble of finding me. I wanted you in chains. Chains wouldn't have held me anyway." The queen stopped 3 paces away. Up close, Daniel could see the faint lines of stress around her eyes, the tightness in her jaw. She was young, too young to rule an empire, and the weight of it showed in ways she probably didn't realize. "Why did you come?" she asked quietly. "Because you need to hear the truth," Daniel said. "Your generals are lying to you. The war with the Terran Alliance isn't going the way they claim. You're losing, not quickly, but steadily. And when your empire falls, billions will die needlessly." Lyra's hand moved to the ceremonial blade at her hip. "You dare suggest I surrender? I'm suggesting you stop listening to old men who care more about glory than lives." Daniel took a step closer. "You're 23. You inherited this mess from your father. You didn't start this war, but you can end it. My father was a great leader. Your father was a conqueror who bit off more than he could chew. The Terran Alliance isn't some primitive species you can bully into submission. We've been fighting longer than your empire has existed. We're good at it. Really good at it." Queen Lyra's silver eyes flashed with anger. "Then why haven't you won? Because we don't want to exterminate you. We want peace." Daniel held up his hands, showing he was unarmed. "That's why I'm here, not as a warrior, not as an enemy. As someone offering you a way out that doesn't end with your empire in ruins." The throne room fell silent. Guards watched from the shadows, hands on their weapons but uncertain. The young queen studied Daniel's face, searching for deception, for weakness, for anything that would justify ordering his execution. "You're either very brave or very stupid," she finally said. "Probably both," Daniel admitted with a slight smile. Lyra turned away, walking back toward her throne but not sitting. She stood at its base, one hand resting on the armrest, her back to Daniel. "If I listen to you, my generals will call it weakness. If I show weakness, someone will try to take my throne. If you don't listen, there won't be a throne left to take." The queen's shoulders tensed. Daniel waited, knowing this moment would determine everything. Wars had been won and lost in conversations like this. Finally, Lyra turned back to face him. "You have 1 hour to convince me," she said. "Speak." The first cruiser exploded at dawn. Daniel had been in the palace's detention wing for 3 days when the attack began, locked in a crystalline cell that was more luxury suite than prison. Queen Lyra had listened to his proposal, then imprisoned him while she deliberated. Fair enough. He'd walked into an enemy stronghold making demands. Some caution was warranted. But now the palace shook with explosions, and Daniel knew his time was up. The cell door dissolved as emergency protocols activated. Daniel stepped into the corridor to find chaos. Zarian nobles and servants ran in all directions, while guards shouted conflicting orders. Through the massive windows, he could see starships engaging in low orbit, their weapons tearing apart the morning sky. Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison appeared at his side, her Terran Alliance uniform torn and bloodied. "Took you long enough to get thrown in jail?" she said. "Where's the Queen?" Daniel asked. "Throne room, last I checked. Her generals are trying to execute a coup. Apparently they didn't like her peace talks. How many are with us? Maybe 30% of the Royal Guard. The rest are either loyal to General Vex or sitting on the fence waiting to see who wins." Daniel grabbed a plasma rifle from a fallen guard. "Then we need to make sure they see us winning." They ran through corridors filled with priceless art and irreplaceable history, past rooms where ancient Zarian emperors had made decisions that shaped the galaxy. The palace was a monument to power, but right now it was a battlefield. Energy bolts scorched the walls. Bodies littered the floor, both Saurian and human. Kate took point, her tactical implants feeding her real-time data. 3 guards ahead. Hostile. I'll go high, you go low. They rounded the corner simultaneously. Daniel's shots took out the ceiling-mounted turrets, while Kate dropped the guards with precise bursts. They didn't slow down. The throne room was 2 levels up and half a kilometer away. Every second counted. "Why did you really come here?" Kate asked as they sprinted up a spiral staircase. "Someone had to. That's not an answer." Daniel vaulted over a fallen chandelier. "I saw the intelligence reports. The Zarian Empire is fracturing. If we keep pushing, they'll collapse, but it won't be clean. It'll be bloody and brutal, and millions will die. Maybe billions. So you thought you'd prevent that by walking into the lion's den and chatting with their queen? You have a better idea?" Kate shot out a security drone. "Yeah, we could have just won the war." "Winning isn't the same as ending it." They burst into the Royal Archives, a vast chamber filled with holographic records of 10,000 years of Sarian history. The ceiling had been blown open, revealing a firefight on the level above. Daniel could hear Queen Lyra's voice, sharp and commanding even through the sound of weapons fire. "She's holding the throne room," Kate said, checking her tactical display. "General Vex has it surrounded with about 200 troops. The Queen has maybe 50 guards left." "What about evacuation?" She refused. Said a queen doesn't run from traitors. Daniel smiled grimly. "I like her. You always did have a thing for difficult women." They took the maintenance shaft up to the next level, emerging behind enemy lines. Vex's troops had set up firing positions around the throne room's massive doors, pouring energy fire through the entrance. Inside, the Queen's guards were dug in behind overturned furniture and broken statues, returning fire when they could. Daniel tapped Kate's shoulder and pointed to the thermal charges on his belt. She nodded, understanding immediately. They split up, circling to opposite sides of the enemy position. Daniel set his charges against the support columns while Kate did the same on her side. "On 3, he whispered into his comm. 1. A guard spotted Kate. She dropped him with a headshot. 2 more guards turned their way. Energy bolts sizzled past Daniel's head. 3. The charges detonated. The support columns exploded outward, sending debris cascading onto Vex's troops. The corridor collapsed in sections, crushing soldiers and scattering the rest. Daniel and Kate charged through the confusion, weapons blazing. General Vex stood at the center of his formation, a towering Zarian with 4 arms and scales like armor plating. He saw Daniel coming and roared a challenge. Daniel didn't slow down. He crashed into the general with his shoulder, using momentum to knock the larger alien off balance. Vex's lower arms caught Daniel around the waist, lifting him off the ground. Daniel slammed his rifle stock into Vex's face once, twice, 3 times. The general's grip loosened. Daniel twisted free and put a burst of plasma into Vex's chest. The general fell like a toppled monument. "Stand down!" Daniel shouted to the remaining troops. "Your commander is dead. This is over." Some dropped their weapons immediately. Others hesitated, looking to their sergeants for guidance. A few raised their rifles. Kate's voice cut through the confusion. "Anyone who keeps fighting dies. Anyone who surrenders lives. Choose now." One by one, the weapons clattered to the floor. Daniel didn't wait to see if they'd changed their minds. He ran through the throne room doors to find Queen Lyra standing behind an overturned throne, her ceremonial blade dripping with green Zarian blood. 3 of her guards were down, the rest looked exhausted but defiant. "You came back," Lyra said, lowering her blade. "You needed help. I had everything under control." Daniel looked at the bodies, the destruction, the burn marks covering every surface. "Sure you did?" The Queen's expression softened slightly, which for her was almost a smile. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We need to secure the palace and find out how deep this coup goes. If Vex had support in the fleet, we've got bigger problems." As if on cue, the palace shook with another explosion. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Queen Lyra straightened her robes and placed her blade back in its sheath. "Then we should get to work," she said. The command center was buried 3 levels below the throne room, a fortified chamber designed to survive anything short of planetary bombardment. Queen Lyra stood at the central holotable, watching fleet positions update in real time. Daniel stood beside her, along with Kate and the remaining loyal commanders. "Admiral Cross has declared for the rebellion," one commander reported. "He's taken 12 ships and is moving to blockade the capital." "Admiral Fenn remains loyal," another added, "but she's outnumbered 3-1. Queen Lyra studied the display with cold calculation. "What about the outer systems?" "Mixed reports. Some governors are waiting to see who wins. Others have already declared independence." "Cowards," Lyra muttered. She looked at Daniel. "This is what you wanted to prevent?" "Actually, it's worse than I expected," Daniel admitted. "I thought your empire had maybe 5 years before internal pressures caused it to fracture. Looks like General Vex accelerated the timeline. Can we win?" "Depends on your definition of winning. Can you defeat the rebels militarily? Maybe, if we act fast. Can you hold the empire together afterward?" "That's a different question." Lyra's jaw tightened. "Speak plainly. Your empire is dying. It's been dying since your father overextended it 30 years ago. This coup is just a symptom. Even if you crush it, another will follow. And another. Until there's nothing left but fragments fighting over scraps." "So you're saying I should surrender to the Terran Alliance?" "I'm saying you should consider a different kind of empire. One based on cooperation instead of conquest, trade instead of tribute, alliance instead of subjugation." One of the Zarian commanders slammed his fist on the table. "Heresy. Our empire has stood for 10,000 years. And it can stand for 10,000 more, Daniel said calmly. But only if it adapts. The galaxy is changing. Species that used to accept domination now had the technology to fight back. The old model doesn't work anymore. He's right, Kate added. The Terran Alliance didn't start as a military power. We were a loose coalition of trading partners. We only militarized when we had to. But that foundation of mutual interest kept us together even when things got tough. Queen Lyra circled the holotable, her silver eyes distant. My father would have executed anyone who suggested this. Your father is dead, Daniel said gently. And his way is dying with him. You have a chance to build something better. Or lose everything trying. You're already losing everything. At least this way you get to choose how it ends. An alarm blared. The holotable flashed red as new contacts appeared on the display. Dozens of ships dropping out of hyperspace, far more than Admiral Cross commanded. Identify those vessels, Lyra commanded. A technician worked frantically at his console. Terran Alliance Fleet, Your Majesty. 47 ships led by the carrier Defiant. Everyone in the command center turned to look at Daniel. He kept his expression neutral. That would be Admiral Chen. I asked her to stand by in case negotiations went poorly. You brought your fleet here? Lyra's voice was dangerously quiet. As insurance, if the coup succeeded, we weren't going to let the rebels execute you. How considerate. I'm serious. You're the best chance for peace this sector has seen in decades. Losing you would have set everything back. The holotable updated again. Admiral Chen's fleet was moving into formation, not attacking, but clearly ready to engage if needed. The rebel ships under Admiral Cross began repositioning, caught between the Queen's loyal forces and the Terran Alliance. Admiral Cross is hailing, the communications officer reported. Put him through. A holographic projection materialized above the table. Admiral Cross was old even by Zarian standards, his scales faded and scarred from a century of warfare. Your Majesty, he said, his tone dripping with contempt. I see you've allied yourself with humans. Your father must be weeping in his tomb. My father made many mistakes, Lyra replied coldly. I intend to correct them. By surrendering our empire to these mammals? Never. The true Zarian way is conquest, domination, glory. The true Zarian way is survival, Lyra countered. And right now you're threatening that survival with your treason. I am saving the empire from your weakness. Daniel stepped forward, making sure the hologram could see him. Admiral Cross. This is Commander Daniel Cross of the Terran Alliance. I'm offering you one chance to stand down. Take it. Cross laughed, a harsh, rattling sound. You think I fear your threats, human? I've commanded fleets since before your homeworld developed spaceflight. Then you should be wise enough to recognize when you're beaten. You're outnumbered. The Queen lives. Your Kupa has failed. Every minute you continue this fight, more of your people die for nothing. Death in battle is preferable to the shame of surrender. That's your choice to make for yourself. Don't make it for the thousands of soldiers under your command who might want to see their families again. For a moment, Cross hesitated. Daniel could see the calculation in the old admiral's eyes, weighing glory against survival, pride against pragmatism. Then Cross straightened. All ships, weapons free. We attack on my mark. The hologram cut out. He's really going to do it, Kate said quietly. He's going to throw away thousands of lives rather than admit defeat. Queen Lyra's expression was granite. Then we'll have to kill them all. No, Daniel said. There's another way. He turned to the communications officer. Open a channel to Admiral Chen. and make it wide broadcast. I want every ship in this system to hear this." The officer looked to Queen Lyra, who nodded. "Do it, Admiral Chen," Daniel said when the channel opened. "I need you to transmit our peace treaty proposal to every ship in this system. Full details, no redactions." Admiral Chen's voice came through clearly. "Commander, that treaty hasn't been finalized. You're not authorized to release it." "I know. Do it anyway." "That's an order. You can't give me orders. I outrank you. Jennifer, please. Trust me." A pause. Then, "Transmitting now." Data flooded through every ship's communication system in the capital sector. The proposed treaty between the Terran Alliance and the Zarian Empire, negotiated in secret over the past 3 days while Daniel had been imprisoned. Terms of peace, trade agreements, technology exchanges, mutual defense pacts, a framework for transforming enemies into allies. Daniel opened another channel, this time to Admiral Cross's fleet. "Attention all Ixarian vessels. You just received the peace treaty your queen has been negotiating. Read it. Every word. See what we're actually proposing before you die for a cause you might not even believe in." "Shut him up!" Cross shouted from his flagship. But the damage was done. Across dozens of ships, Exarian soldiers and officers were reading the treaty, some with suspicion, some with hope, some with dawning realization that the war they'd been fighting might actually end. The first ship powered down its weapons 30 seconds later. Then another. Then 3 more. Within 2 minutes, half of Cross's fleet had stood down. The admiral raged and threatened, but his authority was evaporating. "Admiral Cross," Queen Lyra's voice rang out across all channels. "This is your last chance. Surrender now, and you will be imprisoned but alive. Continue this futile resistance, and you will be destroyed. Choose." The old admiral's hologram reappeared, his face twisted with fury and shame. But behind him, Daniel could see Cross's own bridge crew moving to restrain him. "The flagship Vengeance surrenders," a younger officer reported. "Admiral Cross is under arrest for treason and will be delivered to your custody, Your Majesty." Queen Lyra exhaled slowly, the tension draining from her shoulders. Around the command center, the loyal officers began to relax. The crisis wasn't over, but the immediate danger had passed. "Secure all rebel vessels," Lyra ordered. "Begin damage assessment. And someone get me a detailed casualty report." As her staff scrambled to comply, she turned to Daniel. "You realize you just committed treason against your own government by releasing that treaty without authorization." "Probably," Daniel agreed. "Was it worth it? Ask me when we see how many people survived because of it." Kate appeared at Daniel's elbow, her tactical display showing green status across most of the capital sector. "Admiral Chen is requesting permission to send medical teams to the damaged ships, both ours and theirs." "Granted," Queen Lyra said immediately. Then to Daniel, "Your admiral seems competent. And she's probably going to court-martial me when this is over. I could always refuse to extradite you. You'd have to stay here as a diplomatic liaison." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to finish what you started. This treaty won't implement itself. Someone needs to bridge the gap between our peoples. Someone both sides trust. Both sides barely tolerate me." "Exactly. You're equally annoying to everyone. That makes you perfect for the role." Despite everything, Daniel found himself laughing. Queen Lyra almost smiled, a rare expression that made her look her actual age instead of the ancient ruler she was forced to portray. "I'll think about it," Daniel said. "Think quickly. I have about 100 governors who are going to demand explanations for why their queen is making peace with humanity. I'd prefer to have you there when I tell them." The holotable chimed with an incoming priority message. The technician read it and paled. Your Majesty, we're receiving reports from the frontier sectors. The Kresh Dominion is mobilizing its fleets. They're interpreting our civil war as weakness. Queen Lyra's almost smile vanished. How many ships? At least 300, possibly more. The command center fell silent. The Kresh Dominion was the third major power in this region of space, aggressive and expansionist. They'd been held in check by the threat of Zarian military might, but if they sensed weakness now, they'd strike. Daniel looked at the display showing Kresh fleet movements, then at the scattered Zarian forces still recovering from the coup. Then at Admiral Chen's Terran Alliance ships, powerful but far from home. We need to present a united front, he said. Right now, before the Kresh convince themselves they can take us both. You want me to formalize the alliance? Today? Lyra asked. Today. This hour. Make it public, make it official, make it undeniable. Show the Kresh that attacking either of us means fighting both of us. Kate stepped forward. He's right. The Kresh respect strength. They won't attack if they think they'll lose. Queen Lyra looked at her remaining commanders. Some nodded. Others looked uncertain. She made her decision in seconds. Prepare the treaty for immediate signing. Alert all major news networks. In 1 hour, the galaxy changes. She extended her hand to Daniel, a very human gesture. He took it. Partners? She asked. Partners, he agreed. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to the decisions being made below. But for the millions of people across dozens of worlds, this moment would echo through history. The war that had consumed a generation was ending, not with conquest or surrender, but with something harder and more hopeful. A choice to build instead of destroy. The signing ceremony took place in the palace's Hall of Stars, a vast chamber where the ceiling displayed a real-time map of the galaxy. Every journalist, diplomat, and observer who could reach the capital on short notice crowded into the space. Queen Lyra stood on one side of an ancient stone table. Admiral Chen, representing the Terran Alliance, stood on the other. Daniel stood behind Chen, officially just an observer, but aware that every eye in the room kept drifting his way. This treaty represents more than peace between our peoples. Queen Lyra began, her voice amplified across the hall and broadcast to millions of viewers throughout both territories. It represents a new way forward. For 10,000 years, the Saurian Empire has grown through conquest. We took what we wanted and called it destiny. She paused, letting the words sink in. Some of the Zarian nobles in attendance shifted uncomfortably. But destiny is not fixed, Lyra continued. It is something we create through our choices. And I choose a different path. One where strength comes from cooperation, where prosperity flows from trade, where security is built through alliance rather than domination. Admiral Chen stepped forward. The Terran Alliance accepts this partnership in the spirit it has offered. We have fought a long and costly war. Both our peoples have bled. But today that bleeding stops. Today we acknowledge that we are stronger together than apart. The treaty sat on the table between them, a physical document, despite the digital age. Some traditions mattered. Queen Lyra lifted an ornate stylus and signed her name in flowing Zarian script. Admiral Chen signed with simple efficiency. It was done. The hall erupted in chaos. Half the audience cheered. The other half shouted protests. Several Zarian nobles stormed out. 2 reporters started fighting over camera position. Through it all, Daniel watched the tactical displays on his wrist computer. The Kresh fleets were still advancing, but slower now, uncertain. Kate materialized at his side. Think it'll work? It has to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. A squad of Exarian guards entered, escorting a figure in restraints. General Vex, somehow alive despite the plasma burns Daniel had inflicted. The general's scales were charred black in places, his movements stiff with pain, but his eyes burned with defiant fury. "I demand to speak!" Vex called out, his voice carrying across the hall. Queen Lyra's expression could have frozen stars. "You have no right to demand anything, traitor. I have the right of ancient law, the right of any Zarian noble to be heard before execution." Lyra's jaw clenched. Daniel could see her weighing options. Denying Vex would make her look afraid of his words. Granting him a platform risked undermining everything they'd just accomplished. "Speak, then," Lyra said coldly. "Say your piece, then face justice." The guards released Vex's restraints but kept their weapons trained on him. The general straightened as much as his injuries allowed and turned to address the assembled crowd. "What you witnessed today is not peace," Vex declared. "It is surrender. Our young queen, barely more than a child, has traded our empire's future for promises from mammals who cannot be trusted. The humans will use this treaty to weaken us, to infiltrate us, to eventually dominate us. This is not speculation. This is their history. They consume civilizations from within, smiling while they sharpen their knives." Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the crowd. Daniel tensed, but Admiral Chen put a hand on his shoulder. "Let him finish," she whispered. "He's making our case for us." Vex continued, gaining momentum. "I challenged this madness not for personal power, but to save our empire from foolishness. And what happened? The Queen allied with the very humans I warned against to crush loyal Exarians. She proved my point with her actions." "Are you finished?" Queen Lyra asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "I have one more thing to say." Vex turned to face her directly. "History will remember this day, Your Majesty, but not as you hope. Future generations will curse your name for the weakness you showed here. They will speak of Queen Lyra the betrayer, who sold Zarian pride for temporary survival." The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to the young queen. This was the moment, Daniel realized. How she responded would determine everything. Lyra walked slowly down from her platform, crossing the space between herself and the general. She stopped an arm's length away, and when she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. "You speak of history, General. So let me teach you something about it. 10,000 years ago, the first Zarian emperor united our homeworld not through strength alone, but through wisdom. He knew when to fight and when to negotiate, when to stand firm and when to bend. That is why our empire survived when others fell." She moved closer, forcing Vex to look down at her. "You call me weak because I choose peace over endless war. But it takes far more strength to end a conflict than to continue one. Any fool can keep fighting until nothing remains. It takes courage to stop." "Pretty words," Vex spat. "But words won't protect us when the humans inevitably betray you. Then I'll deal with that betrayal when it comes, just as I dealt with yours." Lyra's hand moved to her ceremonial blade. "You have said your piece, General. Do you have anything else to add before sentence is passed?" Vex straightened, preparing for death with the dignity of a warrior. "Only this. I am not the last who will resist this path. Others will rise. Others will remember what it means to be Zarian." "Perhaps," Lyra agreed. "But they will rise in a galaxy where war is the exception, not the rule, where Zarian children grow up knowing peace, where our empire adapts and survives instead of collapsing under its own weight. She drew her blade. Your vision would have destroyed us, General. Mine will save us. History will decide which of us was right. The blade flashed once. Vex fell without another word. Queen Lyra turned to face the assembled crowd, her blade still drawn, General Vex's blood staining the ornate floor. Let this be understood by all. The old way is dead. Those who cannot accept the new way are welcome to leave Zarian space. Those who actively resist it will be executed. Those who embrace it will help build something greater than what came before. She sheathed her blade with a sharp click. This audience is over. My staff will provide details on treaty implementation. Dismissed. The crowd dispersed slowly, nobles and diplomats whispering urgently to each other. Daniel watched them go, reading body language and facial expressions. Some were angry, some afraid, but more than he'd expected seemed cautiously hopeful.
That was brutal,
Kate murmured. That was necessary, Admiral Chen corrected. The Queen needed to prove she's not soft. Executing a traitor in front of witnesses sends a clear message. Queen Lyra approached them, her composure perfect, despite having just killed a man in cold blood. Commander Cross, a word in private. She led them to a side chamber, a small room decorated with ancient tapestries showing Zarian victories from ages past. Ironic, given the conversation they were about to have. The Kresh are still advancing, Lyra said without preamble. My intelligence officers estimate we have 3 days before they reach our frontier worlds. What do you recommend? Daniel studied the tactical display she pulled up. We need to show them we're serious. Deploy a combined fleet, half Saurian, half Terran alliance. Make sure they see us operating together seamlessly. We've never fought together before. We don't know each other's tactics, communication protocols, or combat doctrines. Then we learn quickly. Daniel zoomed in on a frontier system. Here, Beta Zarian. It's far enough from the core that losing it wouldn't be catastrophic, but important enough that defending it sends a message. You want to use one of my systems as bait? I want to use it as a demonstration. The Kresh will test us there. When we hold the line together, they'll reconsider their whole strategy. Admiral Chen was already pulling up fleet compositions on her own display. I can have the Defiant and 6 cruisers there in 18 hours. What can you commit, Your Majesty? The Starfire and its escort group. 12 ships total. Lyra looked at Daniel. Will that be enough? It'll have to be. The Kresh won't send their full fleet for a probing attack. They'll test us with maybe 20 or 30 ships. If we can bloodly their nose, they'll back off. And if we can't, then we have bigger problems. Kate had been studying the tactical situation in silence, but now she spoke up. There's another issue. The frontier governor at Beta Zarian is Lord Mex. He was one of the nobles who walked out of the signing ceremony. He's not going to cooperate with a joint defense operation. Then we'll replace him, Lyra said flatly. That'll take time. Time we don't have. Daniel thought for a moment. What if I go there first? Talk to him personally. Explain the situation. He'll probably kill you on sight, Kate pointed out. He might, but I've got a good track record of talking my way out of situations like that. Queen Lyra studied him. Why do you keep volunteering for these suicide missions? Someone has to. Might as well be me. That's a terrible reason. It's the only one I've got. Admiral Chen shook her head. I should stop letting you go off on these insane diplomatic ventures. One of these days you're not coming back. But not today, Daniel said with more confidence than he felt. Lyra made her decision. Very well. Take a diplomatic shuttle. I'll provide you with sealed orders and my personal seal. If Lord Mex won't listen to reason, he'll listen to a direct command from his queen. And if he doesn't, then I'll add another name to the list of executed traitors. Her silver eyes met his. Don't let it come to that, Commander Cross. I'm running out of patience for nobles who put pride before survival. 6 hours later, Daniel was aboard a Zarian diplomatic shuttle, watching Beta Zarian grow larger in the viewport. The planet was beautiful from orbit, all blue oceans and green continents, but its beauty was deceptive. This world sat on the frontier between three major powers, a strategic prize that had changed hands twice in the last century. The shuttle's pilot, a young Zarian named Cora, glanced back at him. Lord Mex's planetary defense grid is demanding our identification. What should I transmit? Everything. Queen seal, diplomatic credentials, my name, rank, and service number. Make it official. He's going to see that you're human and immediately open fire. Probably. But if he destroys a ship carrying the Queen's seal, it'll give Lyra legal grounds to remove him. Either way, we win. Cora didn't look convinced, but she transmitted the data. The minutes stretched as they waited for a response. The shuttle drifting in high orbit while planetary defense weapons tracked their every movement. Finally, a response came through. You are cleared to land at the capital spaceport. Lord Mex will grant you an audience in 1 hour. Daniel released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. See? Diplomacy works. Or it's a trap. Could be both. The capital city of Beta Zarian was a strange mix of ancient and modern, with towers of crystalline technology rising beside stone buildings that had stood for millennia. Lord Mex's palace dominated the center, a fortress more than a residence. Daniel walked through its halls, flanked by Zarian guards who looked like they wanted to execute him on the spot. He kept his hands visible and his movements slow. No sudden gestures, no threats. Just a human diplomat in enemy territory trying to prevent a war. Lord Mex received him in a throne room that was a smaller, grimmer version of Queen Lyra's. The Lord himself was old, even older than General Vex had been, his scales dulled with age and his eyes sharp with cunning. Commander Cross, Lord Mex said, his voice a dry rasp, I know who you are. The human who seduced our young queen into betraying everything our empire stands for? That's not what happened, Daniel replied calmly. Then enlighten me. What did happen? Daniel stepped forward, ignoring the weapons trained on him. Your empire was dying. Slowly but inevitably. The war with the Terran Alliance was bleeding you dry. Your outer systems were already planning to break away. The coup by General Vex was just the beginning. If nothing changed, the Zarian Empire would have fractured into a dozen squabbling factions within a decade. Lies, truth, and you know it. You're not stupid, Lord Mex. You see the same intelligence reports I do. The only difference is you're too proud to admit the obvious. The old lord's eyes narrowed. Watch your tongue, human. Why? You're already planning to kill me anyway. Might as well speak honestly. Daniel pulled out a data tablet and tossed it onto the floor between them. The Kresh Dominion is invading. 300 ships. They'll hit your world in less than 3 days. Queen Lyra is sending a combined Zarian-Terran Alliance fleet to defend you. But only if you cooperate. Lord Mex didn't touch the tablet. A combined fleet? You expect me to allow human warships into my system? I expect you to choose survival over pride. The Kresh won't care about your feelings. They'll conquer this world, enslave your people, and strip your resources. Unless we stop them together. We could stop them ourselves? With what? Your garrison fleet is 12 ships. The Kresh will send at least 30. You'll be overwhelmed in hours. Then we'll die with honor. Daniel felt his patience fraying. Honor is worthless if everyone's dead. Your people deserve better than to be sacrificed on the altar of your ego. The guards moved closer, weapons raised. Lord Mex held up a hand, stopping them. You're very bold for someone in my power. I'm very tired of watching people die for stupid reasons. Daniel met the old lord's gaze. I didn't cross the galaxy and risk my life to negotiate peace just so you could throw it away. You have a choice, Lord Mex. Accept help and survive, or refuse it and doom everyone on this planet. Choose now. The throne room fell silent, except for the hum of weapons and the distant sounds of the city beyond. Lord Mex studied Daniel's face, searching for weakness, for deception, for anything that would justify refusing. If I agree to this, Lord Mex finally said, what guarantees do I have that the humans won't betray us once the Kresh are gone? None. Just like we have no guarantees you won't betray us. That's what trust means. It's a risk both sides take. Trust is for fools. No, trust is for people brave enough to imagine a better future. Daniel picked up the data tablet and held it out. Read the reports. See what the Kresh are planning. Then decide if you want to face them alone or with allies. Lord Mex took the tablet with one gnarled hand. He read in silence for several minutes while Daniel waited, aware of every weapon pointed in his direction. Finally, the old lord set the tablet aside. Very well, he said. I will allow the combined fleet to defend my system, but I will be watching, Commander Cross. If the humans show any sign of treachery, any hint of ulterior motives, I will personally execute you and everyone under your command. Fair enough, Daniel agreed. You're remarkably calm about death threats. I've received a lot of them lately. You get used to it. Despite himself, Lord Mex almost smiled. Perhaps you are worthy of the Queen's trust after all. Time will tell. Daniel bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. Thank you, my lord. The combined fleet will arrive within 24 hours. I recommend preparing your defense grid for integration with our command network. I know how to prepare for battle, human. I was fighting wars before your species had spaceflight. Then let's hope we both survive long enough to argue about it afterward. As Daniel left the throne room, escorted back to his shuttle by guards who seemed slightly less eager to kill him, he allowed himself a moment of relief. One crisis averted. Only about a dozen more to go. Cora was waiting at the shuttle, her expression worried. Did he agree? He did. I'm shocked you're alive. That makes two of us. They lifted off, climbing back toward orbit where the combined fleet would soon arrive. Daniel watched the planet shrink below, thinking about all the lives depending on decisions made in rooms like Lord Mex's throne room. Billions of people who had no say in their fate, trusting leaders to make the right choices. It was a responsibility that weighed heavier than any weapon. The combined fleet arrived precisely on schedule, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Admiral Chen commanded from the Defiant, while Commander Krill, a veteran Zarian officer, led the Zarian contingent from the Starfire. Daniel watched from the command deck of the Defiant, monitoring communications between the two groups. Integration proceeding smoothly, Kate reported. Both sides are following protocols. Any issues? Nothing major. Some communication delays while everyone adjusts to each other's systems. But they're working through it. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. The Kresh are still approaching. 6 hours until they reach weapons range. How many ships? Daniel asked. 32. Just like you predicted. I hate being right about these things. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. Both fleets ran final checks on weapons systems, shield generators, and tactical computers. Down on the planet, Lord Mex's defense grid came online, its weapons platforms coordinating with the orbital fleet. Finally, the Kresh arrived. Their ships emerged from hyperspace in a loose formation, black hulls bristling with weapons. The Kresh themselves were insectoid species, all chitinous armor and compound eyes, with a culture that valued conquest above all else. "They're hailing us," the communications officer reported. "Put them through," Admiral Chen ordered. The holographic projection showed a Kresh commander, its mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. "This is War Master Krax of the Kresh Dominion. You are trespassing in territory claimed by our people. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." "This is Admiral Jennifer Chen of the Terran Alliance and Commander Krill of the Zarian Empire," Chen replied. "This system belongs to neither you nor us. It belongs to the people who live here, and we're here to ensure it stays that way. You ally with the Xarians? How amusing. Days ago you were killing each other. Now you expect us to believe you fight together? Believe whatever you want." Krill's gravelly voice cut in. "But if you attack, you'll face the consequences. Both our fleets will respond with full force." Krax's mandibles clicked faster. "You bluff. There is no alliance. Only desperation." "Then attack," Daniel said, inserting himself into the conversation. "Test our resolve. See what happens. And who are you, small mammal?" "Daniel Cross. I'm the one who convinced these two empires to stop fighting each other and start working together. And I'm the one telling you that this is your last chance to turn around." Krax's compound eyes seemed to study Daniel through the hologram. "You are the one from the reports. The human who walked into the Zarian palace alone. That's me. Either very brave or very stupid. Definitely both. But I'm also serious about defending this system. So make your choice, War Master. Attack and face a united fleet, or withdraw and save your ships for a battle you can actually win." The connection went silent for several long moments. Daniel could imagine the calculations happening on the Kresh flagship. They'd come expecting to face a weakened, divided enemy. Instead, they found a coordinated defense with twice the firepower they'd anticipated. "This is not over," Krax finally said. "The Dominion will remember this." The Kresh fleet turned and jumped back into hyperspace, leaving the system empty except for the defenders. A cheer went up on the Defiance Bridge. Similar celebrations echoed across the combined fleet. They'd won without firing a shot, exactly as Daniel had hoped. Admiral Chen turned to him. "Well done, Commander. It was a group effort. Take the compliment." Down on the planet, Lord Mex transmitted a message. "Commander Cross, I owe you an apology. You were right. About all of it. No apology necessary, my lord. You did what you thought was best for your people. That's all any of us can do." As the adrenaline faded and the fleet began standing down from combat alert, Daniel felt the weight of exhaustion settling over him. He'd been running on pure determination for days now, and his body was finally demanding rest. "Get some sleep," Admiral Chen ordered. "That's a direct command." "Yes, ma'am." He made his way to temporary quarters aboard the Defiant, collapsed onto the bunk, and was asleep in seconds. For the first time in weeks, he dreamed of peace instead of war. It felt strange, unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. He hoped it would last.